Fensky.
Am I blocking your view?
I think I've met most of you here in the room. My name's Lynn Ralph. I'm chair of the Downtown Business Association. And so Sergeant Fensky got in touch with me last week to call this meeting. And we, obviously everyone's here to discuss some important issues that are facing the community. So thank you, Sergeant Fensky, for initiating this meeting. I know a lot of people have been talking to us at DBA. We've been going around about another activity, but I've been asking people as I go around if there's any issues that they want to bring forward. And this is one of the main ones, is just dealing with crime and the homeless situation, dealing with aggressive customers, that kind of thing. So I'll turn this over to Sergeant Fensky, and he's going to go through the agenda, speak to the different items on the agenda, and then we'll have a question and answer afterwards. Okay.
Well, I haven't met most of you. My name is Jim Fensky. I've been in Grand Forks now about 14 months. Transferred in from north of Terrace. All my policing has been in the north, mostly isolated rural squads, other than a brief stint on Vancouver Island, and this is my most southern posting, and you can't get much further south, right? So, I've been a policeman for 15 years. I've been a commander for 4 of those 15. This is the biggest post I've ever run. Starting in January, I kind of saw things developing, and there was a trend happening, and we've taken some steps to help try to prevent that. And that's why I wanted to meet with you all today, because really the downtown core is where the majority of the issues are with these individuals. And really, I thought it was important that we were all on the same page and that there was no miscommunication, put it that way. You might as well just get it right from me direct. So I'm going to sit down now because I feel weird. And I'd just like to cover a few agenda topics. Originally I wasn't going to have an agenda, and then I realized there were so many people attending that if we didn't have an agenda, then we could have been here 3 hours going in circles. So I fired off an agenda here, and we'll just cover it off. So number one topic I want to deal with is the increase in mental health related files and businesses in the downtown core since January 1st of this year. And then we'll go on to downtown patrols and some proactive enforcement and some of the changes I'm making in the detachment to help counteract some criminal behavior. Number 3 would be break and enters to businesses, specifically in the downtown core. Some safety planning for business owners, and probably some of you may have started this, some of you may have not heard of this before, but I think it's important for us to discuss it, and then we'll have everyone's favorite question and answer at the end. You know the caveat I put on there about a specific issue. I am more than willing to talk about any issues at the detachment. I think some of the things I've explained in here will maybe explain some of those issues, but in the end, I'm there. I work every day, Monday to Friday. You need to talk to me, please come talk to me, and we will figure it out. I will either get you an answer, or we'll come up with a solution, or I will provide you with information if you're not happy with the answers I give you. Okay? It was nice to meet you all. I met a few of you here. I'm terrible with names, but I'm good with faces. Stage, I guess. So I'm just going to start off with number 1, and I don't want to be the talking head. I'm sure that you can all read this gibberish I wrote down, but the mental health issue has increased substantially in the downtown core in the first 3 months of the year. And I just wanted to cover off, some of the authorities that the police have when dealing with the Mental Health Act file. Now, police have the authority under Section 28 of the Mental Health Act to apprehend somebody to take them to a physician. That's where our authority ends. What happens after that is out of our control. An apprehension under the Mental Health Act rarely results in a committal. There's a lot of misconceptions that the police have the authority to put somebody in a psych ward for a determined amount of time. That authority rests solely with the physician. Just so you know, an emergency apprehension by the police, I would say it's 1 in 50 that results in a what they call a director's warrant being issued and that person being committed to a mental health facility. So just, that number doesn't normally come up. I realize that somebody may have some questions about that, but we have to determine in Grand Forks the difference between a mental health illness and a mental health issue. And unfortunately, the people we deal with in the downtown core, the vast majority are mental health issues, not illness. And an issue is something that's brought on by substance use and abuse, the majority of the time in downtown. Not the same as somebody who's having a full-blown mental health issue, be it that variety of mental health illnesses. That is a completely separate issue. And the apprehension powers for the police are the same regardless of if it's an issue or an illness. That being said, if you look under Section A, the police have the authority to apprehend if a person is acting in a manner likely to endanger that person's own safety or the safety of others, and is apparently a person with a mental disorder. So it doesn't say or, it says and that severely limits sometimes the action we can take. And to be quite honest with you, if a person is having a mental health illness, the police should be the last person there to deal with that person, unless they're acting in a manner that's likely to endanger their own safety or the safety of others. So I know there's probably some questions about that. You know, I feel free to ask me questions throughout. I just don't want to be a talking head up there. So if there is...
So, okay, if it's a mental health,
Yeah.
so, and then what? I mean, if you can't do something about anything, I mean, if you're supposed to be the last people that attend because of that, so what position then does it put the rest of us in?
Well, so if it's a mental health illness,
Yes.
whether that schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, whatever it may be, our job as the police is, if they're acting in a danger to themselves or others, is to apprehend them and immediately bring them to a physician.
And how would we know that?
Well, you wouldn't know that, right? So some of you may have some training or familiar with mental health stuff. The bottom line is if they're acting as a danger to themselves or others, the police should be called. We may not apprehend them, we may take them to the physician voluntarily. That's our preferred course of action, is to convince them they need to see a doctor. Apprehension is our last resort. That is the person that clearly is going to hurt themselves or hurt others. I don't expect you to diagnose. We aren't expected to diagnose. I am not a doctor. I never pretend to be a doctor. But in the end, that's the legal authority, the confines of the law that we have to work in. So the homeless person that is, I'll just be frank with you guys, weird and creepy, he may not even get apprehended because he's not a danger to himself or others. This is the confines of the law we have to work in. This is it for us. Section 28 of the Mental Health Act. Now, if the behavior becomes criminal, for example, breaking windows, or yelling and screaming at your customers, or disrupting your business, we have options under the criminal code. We can charge. We have very, very limited success. When I saw this pattern kind of going with the same 3 or 4 people causing the majority of the issues, I reached out to Boundary Mental Health, reached out to Crown Council. How are we going to deal with this problem as police? Because I think it unfairly lands on our laps. I'm not a mental health counselor. I know how to de-escalate crisis. That's my job as a police officer. We're down a very tight rope when it comes to laying charges. We've had some success recently, and we've been able to get them held in court, hoping that the courts would order a psychiatric assessment. That, unfortunately, is a very hard thing to do. My plan is to focus on the 3 or 4 that are causing the most issues, and push them through whatever system I can push them through to get them help, whether that's ordered help or finally someone decides to reach out and help them. As the police, really my options are limited. I'm only one portion of this social problem, right? And where we are is to help you guys when they reach into that criminal behavior, that disruptive, potentially violent, the charge is really mischief to affecting lawful use and enjoyment of property. Your business is your property. When they're affecting the lawful use and enjoyment, i.e. impeding customers, yelling and screaming, refusing to leave after you've asked them to leave, all that stuff, I can't go down the criminal route. I just have very limited success. We've had some success, but I gotta tell you, it's touch and go every time.
Are we allowed to use basically whatever force we need to remove them from our property?
You have, if someone is a threat to you or others, that you're under protection, you are. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Like I would use every other option and call us. And I realize sometimes it's 12 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm gonna get into that with a safety planning later on, okay? On a complete side note, for the first time in my career, I'm a little bit flustered. Not an hour ago, I had to use Narcan to bring somebody back. And that fentanyl, carfentanil and difentanil, you can be knocked down from exposure from clothing. So before you start to lay your hands on somebody, you better make sure that you're protected. So we've had police officers and paramedics exposed to fentanyl and actually go down and have to be revived by Narcan ourselves. So that's something I want to talk about in the safety plan. Let's not hit the red emergency button yet, but it's a last resort. It's a good question, and it's a last resort, but there's other ways around it. There is some other charges, but essentially, if we're going to pursue the criminal matter, we need statements. The statements are the evidence that proves the charge for us to convince Crown that there's enough evidence to lay the charge. So in British Columbia, because we're unique in Canada, the police recommend charges to Crown. Crown determines whether or not there's enough evidence to actually lay the charge. In other provinces, the police lay the charges. In Crown, in BC, we have another hump to get over to get charges. And honestly, that is where we lose 85% of this kind of stuff. Is Crown is very hesitant to pursue charges against people when there's any kind of link to mental health.
Why? Is that partly because the courts are so active?
No, I think it's just they think of it as a social issue and not a criminal issue. And I'm not here to say who's right and wrong, but my job as a police is to keep you guys safe, right? That's it. And if that means arresting somebody who is having a mental health episode, it may not go anywhere, but at least I've kept you safe. I don't know why, and I get mixed results. Really what we're doing now is we're taking our 3 or 4 most prolific people that we deal with, and you guys deal with all the time, and we're kind of painting a picture for Crown. And we're saying, you know, this person has caused 60 disturbances in the last 3 months, or 30 disturbances. What we're doing isn't working. So how are we going to make it work? Because you guys are going to keep calling us. We're going to keep pretending. Something has to change. And treating it as a single incident this time, and then a single incident this time, isn't working. So we're compiling a whole bunch of it. And we're basically painting a picture for Crown that criminal charges may or may not be appropriate, but something has to be done. We can't keep going this way. This is not healthy for the businesses, it's not healthy for your customers, certainly not healthy for us because we're getting into Groundhog Day. Every day is the same thing, right? It's not working, so we need to change.
So the scenario you just painted where you refer to Crown and Crown decides, usually if it's mental health related, that it's not worth pursuing, is that where they basically just drop it, or do they have some mechanism or some channel by which they can funnel these people off into mental health or into health or something? I'm just curious whether it just falls off a cliff and they're back on the street at that point.
You know what? In my experience, it's pretty much dropped because they have a role, and for them to work outside their role,
Right.
That's not their area of expertise.
I mean, like, there's no official connection between them and somebody whose role it is to kind of act as an ingestion point to the system from the legal system, I mean, to the mental health system from the legal system.
Well, we all work together.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people that we deal with, they don't really fall into a category. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
They're having these mental health episodes, but it's based because of substance abuse.
Right.
Right? So it's not a mental health issue, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there is some stuff available to them, but it's substance based. And once that substance is removed, things are better until they...
I get that, yeah.
The reality is in Grand Forks, before my time, from about mid-2000s to the early 2010s, we had a major influx of methamphetamine. And we are now experiencing the side effects of abuse of methamphetamine.
Right.
The people aren't getting any better. They're continuing to use, and the brains are deteriorating to the point where they have no idea, and that forms the intent issue for me. That causes the issue, right? Is some of them do, some of them don't. But how do you categorize somebody? And years ago, we used to court orders. You must go to rehab. You must go to drug rehab. You must go to alcohol rehab. We can't force anybody to go to rehab. It never works. So it changes. And some crowns will reach out to mental health and say, is there a program available? Other crowns will say, it's not a criminal matter, therefore we're not even proving charges, so this one's dealt with.
Okay, it's just I see government often as a machine. If you've got a file, somebody within your system has a file because something happened, you've been dealing with them, the file moves from you through the prosecution, et cetera, et cetera. Well, in a sense, it looks like the government's compartmentalized when the file doesn't cross over to mental health. So in a sense, I see the government as kind of like this, a bunch of businesses independently who have to deal with this issue somehow, and they're looking at the government, and the government's kind of like a bunch of independent entities called the government that deal with their own portion, but there's no the file moves from you guys to mental health. That's what I mean.
Yeah, no, so you said, I hope I'm going to answer your question.
Yeah.
We work with mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to find a way and a path for these people, criminal being the last resort.
Right.
Right? But at some point, when your behavior becomes danger to yourself or others, the police have to step in. And I don't have an answer for you about what happens after. Generally, I get a one-liner that says there's no substantial likelihood of conviction.
Right.
This person has a mental health issue. And that's it. So what we're trying to find another way is basically, because what is going on is not working, in my opinion. So we are having success, we are, because, and it's not me, it's my officers.
Right.
They are constantly arresting and charging and arresting and charging. So someone please take ownership to this individual, fix them, or try to fix them. That's just the caveat we have in British Columbia. It's substantial likelihood of conviction.
Well, my other question then is, they're not all in that category.
No.
There's a lot of people around town that are literally patrolling backs of businesses or backs of homes, looking for things to steal, then perhaps buying drugs. I don't know what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
But and so it's not all mental issues.
Yeah,
So,
and we have plans in place for them, and you know, the RCMP does report to the mayor and council every 3 months or 2 months. Just to ease everyone's mind, property crime has actually reduced fairly substantially in the last 2 years in Grand Forks, because we've been focusing on the prolific offenders, the people that steal stuff all the time. Those are the ones we're focusing on. And it's the old adage, you focus on the 10% of the people that commit 80% of the crime. And that's everywhere I've been, that's what we've done. We're having good results.
Okay.
And that's true. The statistics, I went over them. I review almost every single file that comes through Grand Forks last year. Last year we had 4,227 files. So I looked at probably at least 80% of those at some point or another.
Well, it's just interesting because you see the same people out and about all the time.
Yeah, and it's an uphill battle for us because property crime really, on the scale of things in criminal court, is on the lower end of things. It's not treated as crimes against persons, and it's just not treated as highly. It's not as, I don't know, it doesn't carry as much weight as crimes against people and violent crime. So it's an uphill battle, over and over and over and over, right? So that's substantial likelihood of conviction. In every other province and territory in Canada, it's a reasonable likelihood of conviction. In British Columbia, it's substantial likelihood of conviction, which means essentially the police have to throw a slam dunk on the test. And even then, mixed results. So it's, but we're here, we're gonna keep coming, we're gonna keep charging if we can, and it's not gonna deter us because it's been that way for 20 years in British Columbia. Right.
Here's a question. We're approaching an election. In other provinces, are they seeing different successes with the mental health issues, with the different structure that they have with the, removing the crown piece?
Well, you gotta understand, mental health stuff doesn't go to them. It's a physician. Mm-hmm. So they don't even see that component. What they do see is they see the mental health issue stuff, not illness. Mm-hmm. So I would say I've been in BC and the Yukon. Here, the ratio is higher of mental health issues in British Columbia, but the success really isn't any different anywhere else, because really it's a doctor that deals with the illness, and Crown really doesn't see any of those. That answer.
Yeah, that answers.
So I'm going to just move on. If there's no questions about the police's authority under the Mental Health Act or mental health illnesses or issues. Back to you, sir. You said, what can business owners do to protect their businesses, employees, customers, and assist the police, right? I will go back further into this with the safety planning, but just so you know, and I'm sure most of you are aware, you have the right to refuse service to anyone, right? You do. It's your business. You don't have to explain the reasons why. You don't have to expand on it. I don't want you in my store, period. And if you don't leave, I'm calling the police, okay? Once again, just so you know, that arrest might not result in charges, but if the person is being belligerent, and you don't want them there, maybe they stole from you in the past and you can't prove it, but you have the right to refuse service to anyone. If the problem is a persistent non-criminal one, and there is a few of those just creepy or weird people that hang out, they never go away, you can get a civil restraining order. It doesn't have to be a criminal process. You can make an application under civil court and get a civil restraining order if that's an option for you, right? There are some businesses that are on private property, and the police's level of authority comes sometimes into question there on private property. It's not a public place, right? Causing a disturbance isn't a public place. I can't arrest somebody for causing a disturbance in a private dwelling house. So home-based businesses, it's a bit of a legal issue there. So,
Drive them on side.
But you can, that is a process. And some of the ways, we've done a lot of work, and I gotta say, a lot of the business owners come around and really appreciate it. You have to make it so it's not a place they want to loiter and hang out. Free coffee. There's free coffee at the shelter. Free use of phones. It's your business. In the end, you're protecting your inventory, you're protecting your customers, you're protecting your employees. You have the authority to say, no, don't come in here, I don't want you in here. Why? I don't have to tell you because I told you so. Get out, please. Please leave. Be polite, but be stern and sit your ground. It's just something to mention, the free coffee and stuff. It just make yourself, you want to be a good, desirable business for your customers, but do you want that certain element hanging out in your store to begin with? Right? Some of you may, have sympathetic. That's great, but in the end, it will cause some issues. So what we're doing is I looked at the business or the stats downtown, when the offenses are being committed, what the issues are, and so I've kind of implemented varied start and end times. The schedule in Grand Forks hasn't changed for years. Everybody knows what the schedule is, right? So with some buy-in from my members, we're going to start later and end later, just to try to catch, and we're talking about the criminal element now, you're not mental illness. The people that are going to break into cars or break into businesses. So we're going to try to catch them off guard. So we're gonna change that up a bit. Okay, so I'm encouraging my members to, you know, be in the spots where we need to be. And that's the alleys, checking the back doors, the cars, side streets, parking lots, things where you need to be. Driving out the Copper Ridge at 2 in the morning is nice to look at the nice houses, but the criminals are down there. We'll get to them, right? Just so, oh, sorry.
Sorry, do you have patrols in 24 hours?
No, we do not. We do not provide 24-hour policing service. It's not possible with the resources we have in Grand Forks. So there's a certain portion of the night when the members are on call status, and sorry, I'm just having to monitor this. The call during that period of time, it used to be the calls were monitored by the dispatcher in Kelowna. Now they've instituted a program called EMOS, and please don't ask me what that stands for. But essentially, there's a senior police officer in the OCC, or the dispatch center, that vets the calls. So if a call comes in at 5:30 a.m., rather than a dispatcher make a judgment call whether or not that member should be woken up of bed, it's an actual police officer that takes over that file and says, yeah, we better send somebody, or no, this can wait till late in the morning. So that's changed in about the last year, and we've had a lot of success. Has there been some bumps in the road? Yes. But it's a good thing, because I'll expand on the false alarms issue, which is a whole separate issue. Members were constantly getting called out of bed to go to a one-hit alarm that was 99.9% false, and charging overtime, charging the taxpayers.
You know, these vehicles are very obvious.
Yeah.
Any thought to putting them on bikes?
You know what? The bike issue is a very contentious issue, and I'll tell you why. Number one, the training course is extremely long and expensive. The members come in and out. They're invariably downtown on the bikes, and then they get a call in North Fork, and they have to pedal back to the office, then jump in the car and go. I have done up a business case for side-by-sides, UTVs, which we are going to be used in the downtown parks and streets. We've got permission from the city to sleuth around those at nighttime. We're going to be doing joint patrols with paramedics as well. I've done a business case up to get an unmarked police vehicle as an addition to our fleet. Now, those are usually sneaky for about 4 days before everybody knows that the gray Tahoe is down with police cars, so don't speed. Right? We have used other vehicles in the past to sneak around, but the reality is that the visibility is the most important thing, and you can never. It's hard to put a figure on visibility, because it's shown historically, the more police presence you have in the areas where you need them, crime rate drops substantially. So that's why I'm focusing my members on where they need to be. And I like your thoughts, but the bike thing, it works out in big detachments where you have a designated bike patrol, and you can have 4 members who do nothing but ride bikes. We don't have the resources, and I can't send anybody on a 2-week training course on how to ride a bicycle. It's the truth. It seems weird, but it is a course.
What about organizing citizens on patrol, something like that?
We have them.
Oh, we have them.
Oh yes, and they're very active, and they're very good. They're a very good resource for us. They've been active a long time.
So is it organized through the RCMP?
It's Citizens on Patrol. They report to me, but it's Ann Gordon is the person in charge of the Citizens on Patrol. They do good work for us. And they sleuth around in a minivan, and they phone us and say, hey, there's a guy at the Lime Creek logging here, he probably shouldn't be here. And
So contact her?
yep, if you want it, they're always looking for members. And they have radios, and we work with them quite a bit. They have monthly meetings that we work in conjunction with them quite a bit.
Do they get to carry guns?
No. Some of them, just kidding. So Going back to that senior NCO thing, it makes a big difference because the dispatchers in the past had no judgment. If a person called the police and it was a barking dog, they had to wake the member up to go out to a silly call, which can be wait till the morning, right? So that's some of the things we're going to change. Is focusing on the core, changing the start and end times. Everything is resource dependent. Right now I'm really lucky. I'm only down 2. Those one should be coming back hopefully soon, and the other one should be back by mid-June. And that will give me the options to switch things around. We're going to try now, but I've got to be honest. I don't know with the resources I have. I don't know if it's going to be super successful right now. It may only be one person, but my members are willing to try, so we're going to go for it and see how that changes things.
How many members are there?
Well, there's 11 with me, and they won't let me out of the office, so I try to get out every now and then. But
And what area do you 11 cover?
we cover from the red roofed house on your way to Greenwood, the log house, all the way to the Paulson Bridge. And we go north up the North Fork and Granby, almost to Edgewood. Right now I'm also running Midway because I've been running Midway for 14 months off the side of my desk. They go all the way up to Big White almost. Where the sign says welcome to the KBRD, that's where Midway goes to. So a huge area. And there's 3 out of 4 in Midway. So which is why I'm going to go back into the safety planning, because if you're expecting us to be there in 17 seconds, sometimes we just can't. It's impossible. Any questions about the start? Oh, sorry, I see you back there now.
What are your current start and end times, and what are you planning on changing them to?
Well, I don't want to get into, we can't provide 24 hours. It just doesn't work. So we sometimes sneak out at 7 a.m. and sometimes the traffic section, there's oh, sorry. Someone making sure I'm still alive. There's West Kootenai Traffic Services. There's 2 members living, well, there's 1 now, but they do start different times. So even though they don't report to me, they are in Grand Forks, so we have a pretty good relationship with them. If they see something, obviously their police officers are going to deal with it. But so it is kind of varied, but I want to make it more regimented. Does that answer your question? So point 3 here about how many break and enters to businesses we've had. We all need to take kind of at times a perspective and think of how lucky we are where we live in, because we've had 2. Right? One of them was unfounded. The person cut the locks but didn't go in, or didn't try to go in. So coming from other places where I've been, this is really, really good. So, I mean, I'm sure there's some that is not reported to us. I understand that portion of it, but we're 1 in the first 3 months.
I have a question.
Sure.
My store has got an alarm, motion sensors and window sensors and that. There's been a few times, yes, there has been a false alarm. My feeling is when there is an alarm, I don't know whether it's false. I'm not comfortable about going down to my store at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, wandering around there to make sure there's nobody there. I'm by myself. Is it a bad thing then to say, yes, I have an opportunity? Because when they phone me, I say, yes, I do want a police officer there. I mean, I don't think I'm going to stop not doing that.
No. Just to clarify, if we're on shift, we'll definitely come.
Okay.
It's that window where we're not.
Yeah.
And further on down the road here, you'll see that we went to 178 false alarms in 2016. That's 1 every 3 days. 99.9% of them were false. I recognize your concern. You know, we're not asking you to go inside your business and look for someone, but if you show up and there's a busted window or somebody is there, you can call the police. And then that would be enough of an exigent circumstance that the police officer will get called into bed. Now, those calls aren't monitored by me, so that's another portion of this, is that that's the senior police officer in the dispatch center in Kelowna that makes that judgment call. He may say, no, we're not coming till 8 o'clock in the morning. If you have an issue with that, you need to come talk to me, because nothing's perfect. Nothing works perfect. But the reality is that we will ask a property representative to go first and phone back if there's anything unusual that requires the police to attend. And sometimes we get 3 or 4 hits at a business, multiple intrusion alarms. And it's actually quite common, 2 or 3. So how do you judge what's unusual and what's not? Nothing says you have to go in there like you're on fire. You know, you can use your phone from a block away and say, yeah, there's a car parked out in front of my business. This is weird. That car has never been there before. Okay, that elevates our risk, right? Don't want anybody to be put in harm's way. It's not worth it. So since 2015, you notice we had 15 complaints of break and enter to a business. In 2016, we had 11, and so far in 2017, we've had 1 actual. So we're doing quite well. 1 is too many, but like I say, when I was posted in Campbell River, I couldn't tell you how many we had. It was just sometimes 4 a night. Mind you, 32,000 people.
Len is not here tonight, I don't think. Or Marie. Anyway, Len owns the pawn shop on 2nd Street, and they were broken into.
Yeah.
And Marie went down there and nobody came.
Yep, and that's why I put the caveat. They have an issue, they please come talk to me about it. You know, I know both sides of the story, and it's not, I don't want to talk about it here, but in the end, if you have an issue, I'm your source, right? Come talk to me and we'll figure it out. Maybe there was something missed in communication. Who knows? You know, there's a 911 caller that transfers the phone to a dispatcher who transfers the phone to a senior police officer. So, you know, mistakes possibly maybe happen, I don't know.
I didn't know this story, but I'm the librarian.
Yeah.
So that rings true to me, having had to make 4 911 calls recently. I found that dispatch was not relaying even half of what I was saying. And so it took, for the first call, the most important one, it took the entire day for me to relay enough information to police to even have a statement requested. So I'm just wondering if there's anything being worked on to improve communication between 911 and police, because so far hasn't been good on my phone 911 calls.
Well, so 911 goes to Vancouver, and then the 911 gets routed to Kelowna, and then it's answered by an RCMP dispatch. That's anywhere in the province. I don't know. I do remember reading the files. I do remember the incident. By the way, he's charged, you know that. But I understand the concern at the time. Once again, if you want to come see me, we'll go through the files and see where the issue was, because it's easier for me to get it from you as to what happened actually.
I'm just wondering if there's an overall issue between, if that also happens somewhere else, between 911 not giving enough information, if that's something we should be aware of, and maybe we should be calling the 442 numbers.
Yeah, well, during the day it's automatically us. The phone doesn't get routed to OCC, our dispatcher, I gotta stop using police jargon. From 8 to 4, we answer the phone locally, unless I don't have a clerk in that day, which happens, illness, training, whatever. So during the day, you're speaking to someone in Grand Forks, okay? Which is a good thing, because we know who you're talking about when you're phoning, right? Well, if you phone 911, it goes to Vancouver, but if you call the police station in Grand Forks, it goes to us. After hours, it gets routed to Kelowna. And then you have that, I believe there's a message, you know, if you need 911, phone 911. It's a separate thing, but it eventually ends up in the same place. They just basically triage the call. Ambulance, fire, police. I'll transfer you to the police, and that goes to Kelowna.
So when do you call 911? When do you call the RCMP? What's
Well,
the difference?
if there is a danger to yourself or others, err on the side of caution, right? You know, if there's we weird looking dude across the street, but he's not doing anything, it's not really a 911 call. If someone is in your business causing a scene and you want them removed because you're afraid someone's going to get hurt, that's a 911 call, right? Or if your safety's jeopardized, it's a 911. Right? Err on the side of caution. But, you know, we get the people calling 911 because there's an injured deer, right? Yeah, it's a priority, but 911 goes to Vancouver, and if you phone 911 because, you know, somebody tipped over your garbage can, chances are you're not going to get a police officer very quick. So, risk of harm to yourself or others.
So during the day, I should call it 442?
Yep, 442-8288. Yep, and if it is a 911 call, phone 911. Like, that's what they're there for. Who am I to judge? I obviously see things very differently than you guys do, right? So who am I to judge that it's not an emergency to you? That's their job, to vet that call and figure out where it's supposed to go. Does that make any sense?
Yes, but
Yep.
what happened at the library has happened at my business too.
Yep.
Same thing is that it went to 911 and we ended up phoning the detachment to find out what's going on, if somebody was coming or not. That was 4 hours later.
Yeah, and sometimes calls sit in the queue and it's not perfect. So if you don't get the answers from 911 right away, you did exactly what you did. You phoned the detachment. I don't know the call. I don't know.
When we spoke to the officer on duty,
Yeah.
that information was not relayed to him.
Okay. Well, and like I say, nothing's perfect, right?
Yeah.
You remember Kelowna OCC, one of the things that all our new members do is they get to go there and they sit in the dispatch center and realize the sheer amount and volume of calls that those people deal with on a daily basis. And is everything perfect? Absolutely not. It can be utter chaos in there on a long weekend. And they have the same issues we do there short term. So I know that doesn't answer your question, but if you don't get what you want the first time, phone somebody else, right? If there is a danger to yourself or others, and they may risk assess your call and say, okay, the person's outside, but you're safe in the business with somebody else, okay, they may rank that from a 1 to a 2. Priority 1 to a priority 2. So nothing's perfect. Certainly, once again, you know, if you have an issue, you come talk to me because I can help you. We can either figure it out or we'll find a plan for you, right? So just going back to the alarm issue. Our policy is our members don't respond to alarms when they're on call unless there's something unusual that makes them get out. And that is just, as you can see, 178 false alarms. Unfortunately, the majority of alarms occur in the night when we are on shift. That's just the way it goes. We do get the 9 a.m. crap, I forgot the code and I'm showing up to work alarms, but we're on shift, so we'll come. And as business owners, if you accidentally trip your alarm, please phone back and say, I screwed this up. I hit the wrong code, I'm new, help, right? That way we don't even need to come. Any questions about alarms, call-out policy, anything about that? Breaking enters to businesses? Safety planning, and honestly, this is something that I didn't even consider. I went to an emergency planning conference. It was about police leadership in crisis, you know, when it really hits the fan. I got chosen to go on this, and then I realized that my clerks, my girls I call them, they're alone in the police station a lot of the time. And what is your safety plan if it goes sideways for them? And you'd think that we would have one, and I suddenly realized we didn't, because we're the police. And then I realized, wait a minute, bad things happen at the police station all the time. So it's just for discussion points. Do you have a safety plan at your business? If someone comes in and is clearly a danger to yourself or others, what is your plan? Is your plan to fight them? Is your plan to run to the back and secure yourself in a locked room? Call 911? It's something to discuss. Every business should have a safety plan. You're obligated as employers under the labor code to make sure you have a safe work environment for employees. And I gotta say, I was, as this was unfolding and they were going through this scenario, and I'm like, man, I gotta do some work. Like, I'm we're not there all the time, and we deal with upset people all the time. You gotta have a plan. And once you create a plan, you need to tell your employees and you need to practice that plan. And you know, a plan, there's no official RCMP, this is a safety plan for a bank. Well, there is for banks, but for a flower shop, what's the safety plan? For the library, what's the safety plan? Where are you gonna go, right? Something to think about with your boss and come up with a plan. It doesn't have to be War and Peace. It can be very basic. But every business should have a plan. And it has to be discussed in practice. We practice our safety plan. Video surveillance, huge issue for us. How current is it? Is it on a VHS tape that loops every 30 days, has been in the machine for 15 years? It makes a huge difference. Our forensic video analysis unit, it takes some time, can do amazing things with good quality video. They can only start from where they start. Video surveillance is not only a good thing for the police to try to find the criminal, it's a huge deterrent. Huge deterrent for a potential criminal. That sign that says "Smile, you're on camera," I think everybody's in this store, everybody in the meeting has seen one of those.
Okay, we had a snatch and grab. Guy come in and you see him plain as day, rip open a tool, you know, shove it in his pocket. Out the door he went. So when we found this, of course I phoned. Had an RCMP gentleman come down and he looked at the tape, he goes, well, you know, he says, you got a lot of blind spots. If I find this guy, and you know, it's going to be pretty hard to prove because there's too many. I mean, Jesus, I've spent $50,000 on a surveillance.
Substantial likelihood of conviction. If there's a second where that person is off the camera,
yep.
Crown will say he ditched it. I didn't find the drill. That is the confines of the law that I work in.
Yeah.
Is it frustrating? Absolutely,
oh, yeah.
You bet. Right? But think of it as more of a protection thing. Even if you throw that whole silliness off to the side about the person was off the video for 2 seconds, they could have ditched the drill, and somebody else could have stolen it. This is the world I live in.
Yeah, my world too.
Yeah, you know, this is what I read all the time.
Yeah.
Right? It's a protection thing at the very least, right? You know, Smile, you're on camera. Are you going to think twice about doing what you're going to do if you know, even studies show that even having a fake sign makes a difference.
Well, yes.
I feel your front. I read the file and I was so frustrated, but
yeah.
That's the world I live in.
Well, I guess, yeah. How do we make, I guess I've become very jaded. But how do we get, or our people, our customers that come in, how do we get them to realize that, yeah, we've got cameras, everything, I mean, there's signs up, everything, and it's not, I understand about the mental health issue, I understand, it's the everyday Joe that's got money in his pocket that comes in and he doesn't think about, or he doesn't put a face to what he's stealing. Oh, well, they're not going to miss one of those, or they're not going to miss this, and in the pocket he goes, and out the door he goes. How do we...
I used to work at a grocery store.
Yeah.
Before I
well, yeah, you guys really get
joined the RCMP, right?
Yeah.
My boss said, we know that guy steals from us. The minute he walks in the store, you follow him.
Yeah.
And you follow him. Hey, how's it going? What are you doing today? Is there anything I can help you with? No? Okay. What are you doing? I'm just following you.
Okay.
Is there anything I can help you with?
Yeah.
No? Okay. No, I'm staying right beside you until you leave.
Okay.
As a manager, you have the right to refuse service to anyone.
Okay.
I know you stole from me in the past. I don't want you in my store.
Okay.
And you guys as business owners, these are conversations you need to have with each other, right? You know what, one guy, you know, I'm not gonna say, when I was in the grocery store, we had a huge problem with stealing from us. It was just, I'm just saying that was what happened. And we followed them around like hawks, and it was the weirdest thing in the world because they're dressed up in these big smocks and they're shoving turkeys. They were tearing us blind, right? And we followed them around. That's what we did. That's the true story. And finally, they just wouldn't come to us anymore. And I know it's just moving the problem, but if you all do it together,
If a store owner has a right to refuse service to anyone, if it's somebody that has never been convicted before, at what point would it become discrimination? How do they turn around and they slam you for discrimination?
well, they have to prove that, first of all.
Well,
Second,
if you kick them out of the store and you have no proof that they've stolen, but you suspect they
you
have,
have the right to refuse service to anyone, and you don't need to explain
okay,
why.
so they can't come after you for discrimination.
I don't think so. I think that's a pretty uphill battle, right? What's the discrimination? You go to court and say, I think he stole from me before. Every time he steals something, I have to raise my prices to cover the loss. How is that discrimination? You know, there may be, I don't know, that's a big uphill battle for someone to pursue in court. I gotta tell you that. I'm not a lawyer, I never pretend to be a lawyer.
I don't think we can.
But man, oh man, that's a big leap.
Also makes bad press though, if they go to the media and say, I just got refused service because they didn't like the way I look.
Well, then you go and say it was a different reason. And you know what? What's your concern? What's going to happen more though? I mean, every time you take a chance, regardless, right? But do you take a chance defending your business and your employees and your customers, or do you take a chance on the offside you're going to have a civil suit for discrimination, right? I can't answer that for you, but I would suspect slander, libel, and defamation of character, pretty substantial uphill battle to prove that from someone to come back at you. I would say that's pretty tough.
I just wanted to say that the right to refuse service might not actually be true for public institutions. The Library Act prevents us from barring someone unless it's pretty extreme circumstances, and I guess the post office is probably the same kind of thing.
But you wouldn't bar somebody because you don't like their face. You'd bar them because their behavior is concerning to you. That's got to be the leap, right?
It's got to be an incident far beyond concerning for us, just because of the Library's Act specifically.
Yeah, I
so
would
it just
take a
might
look.
not be the case
Yeah,
for
I would
somebody
take a look at that with your boss because, yeah. then contact. That is pretty weird to me because yes, it's a public place. It's like the hockey rink, right? It's a public place. But if somebody's acting irrationally and you're concerned about safety of your customers or yourself, absolutely.
You can kick them out. You
Yeah.
just can't prevent them from coming back without some pretty serious incidents.
Get, like say, civil restraining order.
Like you're having to.
Yep.
The civil restraining order, does that cost anything?
You know what? If it does, it's not very expensive. So, and that's generated by the person. So you can go and book a court date through the Rossland Court Registry. You go before a judge and you basically outline the circumstances to the judge why you want it. That's it. The other person doesn't even have to be there. And the judge will look at your circumstances and say, yes, that's reasonable, or no, that's not reasonable. You're a public place. Maybe the standard's higher for you in that. But the caveat still has to be that you fear that something is about to go bad, and you fear for the other people in the library, right? You have an obligation to protect them. Just like a hockey rink, any other public place. Another good idea, keeping good records, pictures, serial numbers of high-value items recorded somewhere safe. Especially if you're a business that sells and exchanges high-value items, motorbikes, snowmobiles, jewelry, anything that's worth a lot of money. Make sure you have an inventory of that and make sure it's not in the business. Maybe it's in a safety deposit box in your bank. Maybe it's on a flash drive at home. Something. It's one of the biggest issues we have in the police is we recover stolen property all the time and we cannot give it back because we cannot confirm who owns it. We end up doing search warrants all the time on property and discovering $5,000 mountain bikes that go to auction because no one has a serial number recorded. With a serial number, I can put it on a Canada-wide system. If any police officer in Canada runs a serial number, it'll come back as stolen, and it can be seized instantly. Without a serial number, I can't do that.
So I was in one store at least today that had objects of art, carvings that wouldn't have serial numbers, but
Picture.
they would be distinctive. Pictures would
Yep.
work fine for that? Okay.
You know what, up in the Yukon, I did a set of bell cappers. I got a poacher off a video in my police car. I recorded an elk that wouldn't get off the road for me. They poached it 2 weeks later, and we lined up the video I took with the horns on the guy's wall. Video works great, right? Pictures, anything on a flash drive, good inventories. It's, you gotta, like the substantial likelihood of conviction thing comes in again, and for sure, oh yeah, this for sure my ring. Can you prove that to 110%? Well, and the defense lawyers say, well, I've got a video. I can go on the internet and download 63 pictures of that ring. How do you know it's yours? Well, and then we're done. That's the world I live in. Uphill battle every time. And somewhere safe. Don't leave it in the business, safety deposit box, flash drive, somewhere else where it's not accessible. Just little tips that I've learned over my years as a police officer. Even videotaping stuff. You know, high quality video of anything valuable in your store, anything that could easily turn over and stole or recycled. You know, it's frustrating to know that we have the right piece of property, but we can't give it back. And we certainly can't get charges on it because we can't link it to stolen, right? Just a side note about alarm companies. Make sure, please, that you have updated information on your property representatives. Okay. We don't like calling people out of bed at 3 in the morning and saying, well, I don't work there anymore. And is your property owner willing to attend? 5 o'clock in the morning, phone call, single hit alarm, property representative doesn't want to go, we're not going.
Well, I guess that's another thing, like if I'm first call, then my manager, then my assistant manager. But say I'm out of town and one of them gets a call, they're both ladies. I don't want them going down there by themselves.
Yeah.
That's, and I've always said to them, if you get that call, you tell them yes, you want to leave.
Well, but you might not get one. And the thing is safety planning. What's your policy for call out with your alarms? Are you going to stop and observe from a distance? No one is telling you got to run into the business like you're on fire trying to find the bad guy. That's not your job. Your job is to go there to make sure, okay, there's no cars, there's no one around, I don't hear anything, I don't see anything. Okay, well then it's probably pretty safe, right? I'm not telling you, certainly wouldn't want anybody to put themselves in harm's way. You go there and there's a car parked in front of the business and there's a broken window, yeah, you better be on 911, right?
I mean, not to argue that point, but the flip of that is, do I want the police officer going out when your business person can drive, look at your business and go home, and we save our resources?
Well, we won't go. That's our, we're not going unless there's unusual circumstances. And that's because of the 178. So every time a phone rings at night, and I know, you're all business owners, so budgets are a big deal, right? Budget. It's 3 hours, a time and a half at least, that a police officer drives and says, everything's secure, I'm going home.
If a business doesn't have an alarm system, but yet maybe one of your officers that's on the change shifts notices something, how do they know who to call if they want an attendant to come and check, a business owner to come and verify that something isn't right there?
Well, we have a computer system that's called Prime, and I don't want to get into more acronyms, but if you've ever been associated to that business at any time, your number will be associated to it in the computer at some point.
Would it be a good idea for us to share our contact list with you?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I don't necessarily have to put it in the computer, but my clerks can have it, and we can forward it off. Absolutely, if you want to get that. I think things change all the time, right? We forget to update information. Obviously, if they see something unusual, we're going to deal with that first, and we'll find out who you are later. But it's an integral part of being where we need to be, right? And when my first post, we would get out of the car and check doors, and I just want to kind of get back to that a little bit, right? Especially late at night.
Part of the safety thing I was going to ask you about is, and this might get back to mental health issues, but if you have somebody on your premises whose behavior's escalating, now you're saying we should have a safety plan in place, but how can we work to de-escalate the situation? Or do you have some tips about that?
Well, I mean, yes, this has been a huge topic in the RCMP for the last 6 years, is de-escalation. Crisis intervention and de-escalation is a fancy term for it. More or less, it's not raising your voice. If a person is actually having a full-on mental health illness episode, not yelling, talking calmly, not moving so fast, keeping your distance, really that is a call to the police, right? So basically keeping them where they need to be until we get there. Now, I know that's easy to say, but if things are completely going sideways and there's damage being done to your business, I would say that would be a time to enact your safety plan. In the end, it's stuff, right? We can buy new stuff. We can't buy a new person. So, I don't know if that answers your question, though. It's really tips like just lowering, keeping your voice lowered, keeping calm. If people, especially, customers are freaking out, maybe it's time to, can you guys just move to the back of the store and kind of keep everything smooth and really not aggravate the situation. And that's easier said than done, because it is kind of, one of the things I remember most about my crisis escalation intervention training was I was in Prince George, and there had to be 100 of us in a room, and they brought a lady in, a young lady who was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia, and they brought her in to present to us, and she had an episode in the middle. And you got to remember, she's in a room of 100 cops, and she has this little episode, and her worker just calmly said, "Are you doing okay?" And you could see the lights come back on, right? And for me, it kind of changed the way I deal with mental health. My grandfather went through dementia to the point where he didn't know who he was or where he was. It was difficult to watch. And this poor young girl, who was only in her mid-20s, had 13 voices going in her head nonstop, and 12 of them were telling her to kill herself all day long. And how she kept her wits about her enough to present to us was astonishing to me, right? And it changed the way, I really, truly empathetic to people with mental health illness, because I've lived through it before with my grandfather, right? And the police are the resort for them, but it's the last resort. But we do things way better than we used to do. And I truly am very empathetic towards that. The person who's having an episode because they've taken too much methamphetamine, yes, I'm empathetic, but there's a time and place for your behavior, and this business is not it, right? You need to go.
Take you out of the hot seat for a second. For anyone who is interested in learning more about that, on April 26th and 27th, the library is offering, we're closing for 2 days, to offer a 2-day mental health first aid workshop. The cost is $150 per person, and you become certified in mental health first aid. So there's 15 spots left, so if anyone is interested in taking it, call me tomorrow at the library.
Thanks. That's awesome. It's exactly what we need, right? Because we've got to remember that a certain percentage of the people we deal with that are acting like this have no idea what they're doing. And they don't know who they are, they don't know where they are. And, you really have to treat them the way they deserve to be treated. The episode ones, still treat them with respect and the way they need to be treated. But at the same token, this is a business, and you cannot act like this in a business. You have to go, right? Once again, err on the side of caution, right? If somebody has a weapon and they're smashing things, clearly that is not a job for you to be doing.
Is that a point where you should just...
Well, what's more important? That's the importance of safety planning. If someone is smashing your front windows open with a claw hammer, are you going to go out there and talk to them? No, that's where you would probably take your employees and say, yeah, let's go back to the back of the business. We're going to go into the manager's office. We're going to call 911. Maybe you want somebody to keep eyes on him from a distance. right, or her.
But if someone is inside though, and they're acting, is it safest to?
I tell my clerks to run. Right? You get on the phone and you leave this building, right? That's the police. So we take it very seriously. Like, you know, it's easy to say, oh, wrestle them to the ground and all this heroic stuff, but it's just stuff in the end. You know, I hate to say that because we have valuable stuff, but if someone gets hurt, holy, you know, they're out the door, right?
So far, we've all been talking about inside our stores, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of this happens on the sidewalk.
Yep.
What do we do then? What do we watch for or help somebody or?
Well, public places is it's a bit easier because you can just merely lock your door and call from inside, right? Your customers can't go out. You don't want them walking into that. You know, let's see, the best case scenario is happening up front, right? And then it's a call, right? And I mean, if someone is, I don't want to go into specifics because Privacy Act and all that. We had someone who was playing with a power pole with a spatula, right? A mental health illness issue, right? Trying to get the spiders. Not an emergency, right? Maybe we might go check on them, but it's definitely not a place for a full-blown response, right? Not hurting anyone. Definitely concerning behavior, but danger to them. But we'll back to section 28, a danger to themselves or others.
I understand.
Oh, sorry. He's kind of blocking you there. You're gonna have to jump up on the seat or something.
I'm just wondering if you could maybe send out a little message after this for all of us for like tips and tricks for our safety plan. I mean, obviously all of our businesses are individual and different, but maybe there's things that we just haven't thought of that.
Well, I think what I'll do is I'll send this out, and it'll be a reminder to you guys to activate that. I mean, there's lots of brochures at Boundary Mental Health and everything that explains, you know, little tips and procedures of, you know, what to do if something like this happens. Okay. And really, they're the experts of this kind of stuff. But, you know, I'll send this out and, you know, have a discussion with your employees about that. You know, you may be surprised at what responses you'll get. You know, what will you do? And someone will tell you something, you're like, no. That's not what we want you to do, right? So it's important to discuss it. It's important to have a plan. You know, and I just threw this on there, Narcan. The nasal sprays are $35 each. I just used 3 of them, right? Cheap insurance. And it doesn't mean that it's for the person who's having the episode. A customer could go and try to help and get shot in the face and done. Narcan is cheap, $35, not cheap, but it's cheaper, and anyone can administer it.
So, like, how do we know what it is that we're, like, what do we?
You just go to any drugstore and say,
No, but what's the signs that you would need to give someone Narcan?
well, you can really, there's a myriad of research on it. Really, if anybody drops and you suspect there's drugs involved, you can't hurt them with Narcan. It doesn't matter what they're on. Okay. It's opiates and opioid derivatives that it counteracts. But if someone's having a meth reaction, it doesn't hurt them. I'm just saying, if one of your people goes over and all of a sudden,
So they just like drop them?
yes, it's that fast. It's
What causes that?
Why was that?
dust, fentanyl,
Really?
opiate, any dust. We've had a sheriff, I don't know if you guys know what BC sheriffs do, they basically deal with transporting prisoners back and forth court to jail. Shake a coat, just the dust. So you got fentanyl, you got carfentanil, and you got difentanil. It's all here. That's even 100 times stronger than carfentanil. So cheap insurance.
And so where was he?
Any drugstore. Yep.
So we don't need a prescription or anything like that?
No, just say, you know, you can either get it in the EpiPen, which you have to inject, or the nasal spray, which is super easy to use. You take it out of a package, you squeeze it. It's like, you know, the nasal spray when you have a stuffed up nose. It's that easy. And you just keep going. You can't hurt anybody by administering.
You said there was an increase in incidents
incidents with the mental health issues since January. Just wondering, do you have any idea of the reason why?
I suspect it's because the behaviors are getting worse as the abuse continues. The same people that we dealt with last year, their symptoms seem to be aggravated. They seem to be more frequent. That transient nature in the population changes all the time, but there's always the same kind of core group. And we get a few more in, calls go up. I don't know if it's because the weather's better here or whatever, but it changes. And in summertime, it's probably going to get more frequent, right? It just comes and goes, and it just seemed to be the behaviors were causing more attention. What was normal or wasn't as severe, it's getting worse, and I think it's because of the deterioration in the faculties of the people that we deal with all the time. Behavior's getting worse.
Well, my question is, okay, we have a drug problem. I know of at least 2 drug dealers right downtown. Is there any way we can pester those guys to stop?
We have been, and once again, I know exactly who you're talking about. They're just hard investigations to do, and you have one break in the chain, so to speak, of evidence gathering, and the current legal status is you've got to start again. Would I like to be able to kick doors in? Absolutely. It's hard though. It's not easy. When I was on the island, I did 3 years of plainclothes, which was drugs and like major investigations. Drugs were kind of on the side, helping out the drug guys. And it's frustrating, the amount of work that has to go in there to get a warrant, to get into a house, to seize drugs. Really, the best approach is a 2-headed approach, is good old police. You know, it's harassment's a bad word, but if you're leaving a known drug house, chances are you should probably get pulled over. And a combination of trying to gather it the other way. And it's gone from here to here. And it changes with the tide, it changes with the views on, they're hard investigations to do. They're time consuming. This draws us away from that. So with limited resources, and I know that's not an excuse, but if we can curb certain behaviors and focus where we need to focus on, that's what the goal is. And it's just, the average wait time for one of my members at the hospital for one of these is over an hour before we're decided we can go. So that's an hour that a police officer, and it's not the hospital's fault. Don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming the hospital. We have the shortest wait time in Southeast District at a hospital. Ours is 59 minutes. It's down to the minute. Some of them are hours, 3 hours. Coleman. Police officer sits there for 3 hours, waiting for a doctor to say, oh, that person's not mentally unstable anymore. They go, okay, see you later, right? That's the reality of it. So we are blessed with the shortest wait time, which is still an hour. So sometimes it feels like we're chasing our tail because...
Well, what I'm doing now is I go up with my camera and I see them banging on the doors and you see them phoning, trying to get in. And I'm like, hey, and they'll turn around and I'll take their picture. I don't know if that's doing anything that makes me feel better.
Well, I never would discourage anybody from calling us with information. It just, there's so much information that has to be gathered to get us over the hump to get somewhere with it. First, absolutely call. It's just, don't feel like your information isn't going anywhere because, like, we've been working in one place for 11 months. And we're not there.
And there's times when stuff is going on, you can almost guarantee it's payday certain times.
Oh, absolutely. We know.
I won't park back there. Like,
I won't.
Just one more comment, and then I won't talk anymore. Getting back to the security thing, I took it upon myself to talk to two of the rubbies that are on their bikes around a lot. And I called them over and I asked them if they were in the alley a lot. And I knew they were, but they're like, yeah, you know. I said, I'll tell you what, if you stop anybody from breaking into my building, I will take you guys out for a steak dinner. As long as we can prove that you stopped them. And all of a sudden their heads came up a little bit, you know, like they were useful. And, you know, touch wood, we haven't had any problems. I don't know what that does, but if they can stop somebody, I mean, they're there. You're not, I'm not, you know.
And you know, don't want to come across as the hammer all the time. Like, you have to remember you are dealing with a human life, right? And they were, you know, they're entitled to dignity, respect. All that stuff comes into play, right? But that doesn't mean that they get to act in the way they act. But you know what? Good on you for finding an alternative solution to your problem. But there's no easy answer to this. Isn't entirely a criminal problem. It's not a mental health problem. It's a combination of things. And counting on one agency to bring it to resolution is not, it's not just not going to happen, right? I mean, we have a hard enough time getting charges on criminals who are doing criminal things than a person who has an issue who is doing a criminal thing to support an issue, right? That is even a bigger uphill battle for us. Hey, we're here. We're gonna help. We are here to protect you. That's our job. I didn't want the impression to be that we're ignoring the issue, hoping it'll go away, because it won't. But we need to find a better way to deal with it, and we need to find a way to deal with it together. And if you have somebody who's acting out and has done it over and over again, we need statements. We need statements from you. We need statements from your customers. The charge is mischief affecting the lawful use and enjoyment of property. If I can't find somebody in there that says it affected the use of their property, there is no charge. If somebody won't give me a statement, I got nothing. I got maybe 5 hours in the clink to sober up, and then they're out.
Do you have any idea of what the landlord's rights are when the renter is doing drugs and they know it, but they have no proof? Do they have an easier time to get them out of their property?
You know, I'm not an expert on the Landlord Tenancy Act. It's changed. There's only a couple situations where it's appropriate for the police to become involved in that. There's a wealth of information. You can get stuff from us, you can get it from the courthouse, you can get it from anywhere, and it tells you what you're obligated to do as a landlord and what you have to do. Unfortunately, a lot of the issues we deal with that are handshake agreements. And there is nothing, there is no recourse. And if you are in that situation, please go by the letter of the law, because really it comes down to a civil issue and we can't help.
The Residential Tenancy Act has a really robust website, so that's where you should be going to determine your rights.
Yep, absolutely, thanks. It sets it out in stone as to what you need to do as a landlord or a tenant to fix that problem.
Well, an owner of one of those questionable spots asked me the other day, and I did send it to you. I told him to come down and talk to you because I didn't have a clue.
Unfortunately, it's something we deal off on the side of our desk. She's got all the information down at the service center. It's all there. A person can Google, I have a whatever, what do I do? Under BC, and it all comes. The literature's all there.
So earlier on, when you were talking about surveillance systems, it's been percolating in my head ever since. The opposite end from VHS, a lot of the surveillance systems now, a lot of individual cameras now are viewable from the web and can provide content to the web in various ways. Is there any, or maybe it'd be a distraction, and maybe it's not something you could do, but I'm sure that a number of the businesses here have surveillance systems that use modern cameras, and some of those things aren't looking on the inside, they're looking at the outside, the loading dock, the front, stuff like that. Is there any way that you could find a use to being able to, in a sense, aggregate all those views so you could have full
Yeah,
coverage?
we do that all the time. Like, well, if there's a crime that happens in a business, we'll try to pull the video from across the street.
Okay.
Pretty common tactic, right?
Okay.
You know, it's a whole continuity issue of who uses what system, and they're all different. And,
Right.
and right, you buy there's a myriad of
Mhm.
systems you can buy off the internet or get from an alarm company, but that's a pretty common practice for us. You know, we'll even go to gas stations, right? We're doing investigation, you establish a timeline.
Right.
And part of that is video surveillance, and you know that becomes another issue: is what authority are you seizing my video surveillance under? And anyone just needs to go on the internet and a person's willing to. That's great. If they're not willing to, how do we get that video?
Well, I'm just wondering if there'd be any kind of outreach that you could do to businesses like this who are willing to say, yeah, here's my camera, it can do this is the address, and you could put it into an aggregator. I mean, I personally have software that I wrote myself that sits there and monitors webcams that are put up by the city and collects images regularly, just so I can later on go back and do a time lapse and show people how weather changed on a site or whatever. You could do the same sort. Somebody could do the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't think
maps are out there that could aggregate things, and you could basically look at what happened in the last 5 minutes downtown and all the back lanes if there was camera coverage. That's what I mean.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, but you got to be careful of the whole Big Brother thing.
Yeah, I understand.
And does anybody want to live in a police state where your actions are? I don't want to live in a police state.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, but we routinely will seek out, neighboring businesses.
Right.
Right. Do you have any video that covers the front of that store across the street? It's a part of it. It's a routine part of a normal investigation.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Well, in a way.
Kind of.
Kind of. Yeah. The opposite end.
Well, I'll take 50%.
Any other questions?
I'd like to thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I know as one of the business owners in town, and I've been doing this now for over 20 years, the last couple of years have been quite challenging. And I'm not alone, and I just came back from a home hardware show where we met with a theft, guru telling us how to, and the ballroom was packed and everybody was in the same boat. We are so frustrated, and there's, we spend thousands and thousands of dollars on surveillance and security tags and staffing, and it's just, we've got really, the biggest thing I walked away with is if you have an issue, and that was a big thing, okay, you can't stop this person until he's outside your store. Don't get in the way, I guess, because you don't know whether that person's, in this day and age, has got needles, a knife, something that, because they are mentally unstable, a lot of them. So, you really got to make sure your staff is aware of that.
And then, it comes down to safety planning. What's the goal here?
Yeah.
Right?
It is tough.
Yeah, and and it's easy to say.
I know.
But in the end, are you prepared to take that risk?
Yeah, well, that's just it. Years ago, I used to work for the liquor board, and, you grab somebody and take that bottle out of your pocket.
Yeah.
It was, you didn't, they take off down the street and you end up with the coat and the bottle in your hand kind of thing, but it's not like that today.
Nope, you have to be careful, and you never know. And you know what? I didn't want to, like I say, push the red alert button on fentanyl, carfentanil and difentanil, but it is a reality.
Yeah.
And safety planning around that. What happens, right? Are you necessarily going to reach into that guy's coat pocket to grab that
Not anymore.
cordless screwdriver or whatever, and the next thing you got a needle jammed in your hand?
Well, that's just
I've had lots of friends that had to go on the AZT cocktail. I don't know what it's called now. 30 days. They're so sick they can't see. They lay in bed like lumps, and they're sick, and it's all because of a needle poke. Right? Lots of friends, police officers, sick, and that's our job. I mean, we arrest people and search them all the time, and with that comes an inherent risk. But really,
Well, that's just it. Like if you actually know that this guy's got something, even then, it's pretty hard to, like you stop and say, hey, I want my drill back. You know, if they're belligerent, they're not gonna, you know, you're right, you really don't have, as a property and store owner, you really don't have any rights. I mean, you can't physically do anything. By the time you do phone the police for something that you know that these guys just walked out the door, they're gone. You know, it's pretty much.
Well, I mean, all right, you speak the reality, right?
Yeah, it is. It's,
you know, unless there's a police officer around the corner and the guy's running out your door, and there's no time delay on the call.
Yeah, you know, I think you're right, it's common sense, it's trying to deal with what you've got. And, you know, try your best for safety.
And ones that are causing, sorry.
Yeah.
Ones that are causing issues, have they been here all along, or did you just get
Well,
off
I've been
the
here
bus?
14 months, and I see the same names all the time.
Okay.
But I suspect
Born and raised here?
yeah,
10 years?
some are from out of province, some find their way, and
So I
never
just
leave.
noticed like over the last 6 months it being really bad.
It is, and I think it's because of the deterioration. Like methamphetamine, you can only use it so many times, and then you never come back, right? And the more you use it, the more you deteriorate. And the more you deteriorate, the more issues you have, and I think it's a progression of that. I really think it's a fallout from that. Because we talk to them all the time. You know, like, you run into the same individuals all the time, and it's not always adversarial. They're always in a yelling, screaming match. But they'll tell you, you know. I started when I was 24, and I had a puff off the pipe, and that was it for me, done, right?
So are we allowed to pass pictures and names of people even if they haven't been charged?
Your business association, whatever you need to do. I mean, are you acting on it criminally? No.
Just passing it to the next business saying this
When I worked at the co-op in Grand Prairie, we had a list of known shoplifters.
Okay.
And the businesses and the managers said, hey, that guy steals from us. What they did with that, I don't know, but I know that it was active.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think you'd want to give it to the paper and say, these people steal from us all the time, right? Because you can't prove it.
Right.
You know, they haven't been charged criminally. The Privacy Act is a funny thing. Privacy Act is also the Privacy and the Freedom of Information Act. It's not just the privacy, right? Everybody forgets about that second half. But you're not exchanging information for a dangerous purpose, right? It's the knowledge of your co-business owners. I mean, I legally don't know the answer to that because I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. Might be worth a phone call as a business association to figure that out.
Did you have a question?
Actually, I just wanted to address with you. I'm Steve. I run the homeless shelter. So, in answer to your question about where did these people come from, right here.
Yeah, okay.
They're your cousins and your sisters, and they were born here. Maybe they went away and came back, but it's not like they're shipping them in from Saskatchewan.
Right.
And it's not like Grand Forks is a great place to be homeless.
No.
We have very limited options for these folks, and if I close the doors on them, don't want them in the shelter, where do they go? Other centers, Nelson, whatever, they have 2 or 3 choices they can bounce around. So if there's any kind of a notion where people are going, well, they're great to the homeless in Grand Forks, let's go there. That's not the case. Also, I will say that in the last 3 or 4 years, last year was record-breaking for us. We had 995 bed nights. This year, 1,241. And I would say 99% of our, we call them guests, from town or boundary. So when I say from town, I mean whether it's the lake or Rock Creek or Beaverdale, it's nobody's coming in. And when we're talking about the safety part, if you're a business and there's more than one person there, one thing we do at the shelter, because it's our business to deal with these people, is you should have a code word with your employees so that if someone is starting to escalate, you could say, remind me to do whatever your code is, That person has now got 911 dialed, and then bang. And that's our policy there. We aren't telling you my code word. But that works very effective. That way the person you're dealing with who is escalating isn't alarmed that we're calling the cops. You guys are already on the way before that person knows. That just kind of helps. And the whole part about staying calm, they will mirror whatever you do. So if you're freaking out and panicking, you're just adding fuel. Anyway, that's all.
Thank you, Steve.
Myself out there too. I'm losing my voice this morning. Steve's my partner. I'm at Whispers of Hope next door. My name's Andre. And we're working together. So this is my chance to kind of rally the troops here. We've got lots of stakeholders at the table right now. I can tell you there's 4 or 5 very important meetings this week. I spoke today with mental health ladies in my office at this Downtown Business Association. Tonight, we've got a meeting with this and other organizations next week. Meeting with co-meeting with vets and our board. And what we're going to try to do, we're going to try to bring some stakeholders to the table, not just us, but you know, the different people that are involved, including mental health, business association, all these things. And plan is to try to fix the underlying root problems. We've been very good at providing some emergency shelter. We've been very good at providing some good meals for them, but we're just maintaining status quo. What we're not doing is helping these people find homes, get them the mental health and the treatment that they need, and that. So I bring it up because it seems like everyone's talking about the same thing. You're going around town doing a survey about signs, and they want to talk about homelessness, you know, and then you go somewhere else, and it's the same conversation everywhere we go. We don't like the tents along the river and up against our building. It affects our business too. But I can tell you that the shelter closed down on Saturday, and Saturday morning I had to step over people to get into the building. One of those young ladies came in a few moments later, and she says, my hands are hurting really, really bad. And she had really bad frostbite that night. And her hands were like stone. They looked black, and it was a serious thing. And I said to myself, this is crazy. We have enough people in our community, enough resources, enough people that have compassion and want to do something. We have a core group that's small, that we keep saying, that belong people that are from our community, and we should be able to help them. So I bring it out there. I think that there's some very key players that can help come together. Currently, we have a woman that just came into our town that was involved in Medicine Hat, where they solved the homelessness problem. She now lives in Grand Forks. She's going to be one of the players that's invited to the table. So I bring it up because the way that they solved it in Medicine Hat is it was a total community buy-in. And it was business owners, landlords, it was organizations, mental health, the police. It was everybody had to come to the table and bring what they could offer, including the shelter and soup kitchen. And when we work together, we can actually, we're talking maybe a dozen people. We can find homes for a dozen people and help them get the help that they need, and hopefully not have meetings like this where we have to, worry about how we're going to protect ourselves. That we're going to have people that are causing our problems not causing those problems. So, thanks.
Thanks, So on that, what can we do? What's the next step?
Here's the next step. All right, and I'll just give you, here's the vision plan. The next few weeks, we're meeting individually with all these different organizations, okay? Women's Coalition, VETS, Mental Health, Downtown Business Association. We're considering resurrecting an association that was once up in place not that long ago. Some of you will remember it was called MAP, Multi-Agency Accommodation Project. Okay, Habitat for Humanity, that's and Whispers were involved. It kind of folded when the Habitat thing happened. Anyway, we're thinking of resurrecting that, but instead of having just the 3 entities, we want to bring the other entities. Someone from the city, someone from the business association, someone from mental health, and bringing to the table people from all these different organizations, and then using that as an entity to be able to lobby government. There is money on the table, There's a homelessness partnering strategy from the federal government. Every couple of months, I get another email from Nicole Doucette up in Prince George that says, hey, there's funding available. If you've got a homelessness problem, let us know what we can do. Just put together an application and have lots of partners. And so there's some federal money on the table, there's provincial money on the table. There's a lot of pressure politically, actually, on this area. And we can lobby and we can try to get some of that grant money and use that money to help the individuals that are in our community. So that's the next step, okay? Come to the table, be willing. And it's not easy because it takes time. It takes time and it takes money. And you know what? We're spending money in other areas that are not working. We talked about rehab. Personally, I'm not a very fond person of rehab. That seems to be the default nowadays. But a successful rehab 1 year later has a 17% success rate. Okay, so if you go to rehab 1 year later, if you are in good rehab, that rehab will have 17% of their clients not using a year later. To me, that's embarrassing. It's not successful. So we got to look at a different model. And the model is it's a different approach. I've got some ideas. I think that Dara, the new executive director for the Women's Coalition, used that model. Was part of the team that used that model in Medicine Hat, and I think we should be looking at that because it was successful there and we can use it here. So those are just some ideas of where we go from here.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'd like to thank you all for coming and thank you again, June, for initiating this meeting. I think it was really helpful for all of us. We certainly have some tools now that we can use, and you know, we're aware of your limitations, what you can do. So again, thanks for coming and participating. And yeah, if we all work together, I think we can, you know, tackle this problem.